You guys can have a seat. So, my name's Colin. I'm the families pastor here. Thank you. I'm the families pastor here at Public Church. And today we're going to talk about the F word. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, so let me give some backstory here. Todd Stevenson's not here today. He's our lead pastor, and he is speaking at a student event in D.C., and I just really needed to do that because I would pay $1 billion to see his face as he watches this YouTube video of me saying that opener, because I think he's going to die a little on the inside. We're talking about family. Get your head out of the gutter. So, thanks, Josh. So yes, we're talking about family. For some of you guys in here, though, that is like the F word, right? It's just like, it's the worst experience you have. You hate your family. You hate Thanksgiving. You hate Christmas. You hate the lunch you're about to go to today, where you're just like, no, they're going to be there. And it's a really difficult thing. But God designed his church to be a family together, right? Even here at Public Church, we're supposed to be like a family. That might be a foreign concept for you. In fact, it might even be something that you're like, I don't want that. Like, I've got enough strange family members. I don't want Colin Cook added to them, right? And I get that. I'm 90% of the dysfunction in my own family, where it's there. But that's what God created the church to be. Side note on that, we do have a way for you to join the Public Church family if anybody sticks around. What a great segue to Unified. People are looking for a way out of here right now. But we have Unified March 22nd during the 10:30 gathering. So we're going to try this out. It'll be down at Bond Life, which is really cool. We get some coffee and stuff like that. And that's how you become a member of Public Church. If you would like to do that, email Katie at publicchurch.com and she'll get you get your reservation set up and childcare and food and all that stuff. So there's that. So what's family for, though? So we talk about that. Church is supposed to be a family. We've heard that probably before. And that's one of those things that, but what does that mean? What is a family for? Other than like the being strange and getting on your nerves and annoying you, right? That part comes naturally. So what's the good side of family? So I thought of a couple things. One of the things that family is for, so I have 3 sons and we have a daughter on the way. That's pretty cool, right? We've named her. Huh? That's a big deal, right? I know last time I was up here, I was telling you guys she was Baby Hot Dog because that's what my youngest had named her, and there was no better name at that point. But she is now Wren Rose Cook. It's a pretty good name, right? I like it. So I'll stop bragging. I'm really excited for her, but I have 3 boys that, man, it's so helpful. Here's one of the things that they're really helpful for. When I go to the grocery store, I'll do some of our grocery shopping, and when I get home, I call on our street, and I'll just call my wife, and I'll say, hey, send out the help, right? And so my boys come out to the garage, and I'm like, all right, Sully, you're going to have to carry your full body weight worth of groceries to carry the load in. Jude, you're going to have to carry like 3 times that, and I'll carry like bread or something. And it's great, right? They're there to help, and they help me carry stuff in, and it turns something that I would try to make one trip and break things into actually one trip with most things still intact, and that's nice. You guys knew we'd get here at some point, but there is one very helpless situation that they also help with, okay? You know when you're on the toilet? I mean, at some point it was coming, right? But you're there, and you realize there's no toilet paper. That's a needy situation, right? Like that's desperation. And you never noticed before. Have you ever, am I the only one? Like, it's not like you don't see the empty roll until the moment you need it. And then you're just like, oh no, this is not good. This is a bad situation. But I have help in my family because I get to say, Jude, help. I need help. And then usually before Jude hears me, Crockett does, and Crockett comes running in there. He's like, what do you need, Daddy? And I'll say, I need toilet paper. And he'll bring me like everything but toilet paper. It'll be action figures and all kinds of stuff. And sometimes you use what you get. I'm kidding. I wait for toilet paper. I do. I wait. I'm teasing you. Family is for when life is too heavy to carry all by yourself. When you've lost someone you love, when you can't pay your bills, when your life is literally falling apart, is what family is for. Right? We say that phrase like, that's what family's for. And it's usually when we do one of these things, when you're actually there for someone. And God's called us as the church to be a family for each other. The church was set up over 2,000 years ago to foster exactly this. So most of what we'll talk about today will be in Galatians 6, but I want to hit Acts 2:42 through 47 first. It says, "And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And all came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were there together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved." See, the church was set up like this from the very beginning. This was the very first church ever. This is literally like the first meeting of the first church ever in Jerusalem. And they began by meeting weekly together in a large group at the temple and having a gathering kind of like this. And then they would meet through the week in different homes where they would do life together. You see, we've tried to model public church after exactly what we see in the New Testament as the way that Christians are supposed to be doing life together as a family. By meeting here as a corporate big group and then saying, hey, we have community groups where you can go and do life together. So I actually want to pause right now and I want to pray for that to continue growing and happening at Public Church. Jesus, I pray that you help us to be a family. God, that we're a large family when we get together here on Sunday gatherings, but we also become intimate family members as we meet in community groups. That you help us to rely on each other, to be authentic with each other, to be generous with each other as we do life together. In your name I pray, amen. So if you want to, you can turn in your Bible or open your app up to Galatians chapter 6. So originally, I was going to be doing verses 1 through 10, and that shrunk to 2 verses because there's a lot, and so that's how that goes. But what's cool about Galatians is it was written nearly 30 years after the events of Acts 2. So you have 3 decades of time of the church kind of happening before Paul writes this letter to a church that gets planted in the city of Galatia by the original church in Jerusalem. Like it spread out. There was some stuff that happened that led to this, but Paul was the one that kind of got sent out after he was persecuting the church. He was trained and sent out, and he plants this church, and it's this awesome thing. And so 30 years after Acts 2 comes this letter to the church at Galatia. And he says in chapter 6, verse 1, "Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness." All right, there's a whole bunch we're going to unpack here. So that word caught, it means to learn something by surprise, but it literally means to find someone trapped. So what I like to think of is when you set an animal trap out and you come back to it later to see if you caught something, that's what this word is referring to. It's catching somebody in a trap of some sort. So what this made me think of, first of all, has anybody ever caught somebody doing something? Yeah, you get the giggle because you're like, yeah, I have. I've done it. Yes, it was great. It was marvelous. I was superior. They were the worst. And I felt good about myself and they're garbage and this is good. Let's just be honest. That's how you felt. So I caught a family member. I said he. I've been trying to be careful not to even give that away. You guys get to know it's a he. So I caught a family member at one point. It was awesome. I was in a room, and he was in the bathroom, but the door was open, and he was in front of the mirror with his phone, videoing himself dancing and lip syncing to Radioactive. Radioactive. And he's like doing all his moves and stuff, and I was like, this is amazing. So I sat there very quietly, the nice person that I am, and turned on my phone and turned the video on. I was sitting there videoing him, and all of a sudden he looks over and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm texting. Don't worry about it. It was awesome. I still have the video. And you guys are all going to try to figure out who it is. But it's an amazing thing. Has anybody in here ever been caught? Yeah, that's where it changes. Isn't it funny? our reaction to asking the question, have you ever caught someone? Because you're like, yes, I did. To have you been caught? And it's like, I've been caught. I was caught in the worst struggle of my entire life. I was caught because I didn't believe I could win the battle against that. I hated what I was in. Hated it. Hated it so much. It made me hate myself. But I didn't believe there could be victory in this. And then I was caught. And this is, it's not even comparable. It's the worst experience, the worst time of my entire life was during this time. So I want to say something here because Paul's talking to people being caught. I want to say this real quick. We're going to take a quick aside to James 5, but I want you to know this. You don't have to be caught. James 5:16 says, therefore confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. Being caught is a much more difficult and hard experience for healing than confession. Confession will always go better. But so many times we hold on and hide and think no one can know, and it's usually because of self-hatred and loathing, and it's because of the fear of somebody not loving us or somebody not understanding, and we hide all their stuff. But I'm just telling you, the Bible is clear, and experientially, I can promise you this is true. Confession is better than caught every time. And you are the only one who has the power to change being caught into confession. Nobody else can do that for you. But here's this picture that Paul's talking about. He says, so, all right, if anyone is caught in any transgression, so that word is the Greek word periptoma, and it's for transgression, and it means to sin or trespass or to do wrong. But if you really break it down, the word patoma means death. And so it's somebody that's tripping or falling into death. And it reminded me of James 1:14 through 15. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Here's the thing about transgressions or this falling into death. The reason it's that word is because all sin leads to death. All of it. Not just the sin that I don't struggle with, right? It's very easy to look at other people's sin and be like, oh, I know exactly where that's heading. They're going down and I'm going to laugh the whole time, right? But we don't look at ourselves and say, hey, that stuff that I'm struggling with leads to exactly the same kind of death as everyone else's struggle does. So again, we're building this up. So Paul's saying, hey, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual, and so what that is someone who's living their life in step with the Spirit of God. According to Galatians 5, this would be a person who is loving, joyful, peaceful, patient, kind, good, faithful, gentle, and self-controlled. This is the test that Paul gives for someone who's maturing in their faith. So if I'm going to be caught in something, that's the kind of person I want to catch me, right? That's the kind of person I want to come and find me when I'm in a trap. When I'm caught in a trap that I stepped into that's probably my own fault, I want somebody that displays these things to be the person that finds me in the woods. Every time what this reminds me of when I read the trapped stuff, it makes me think of a bear trap, like from cartoons. You just go, pow, right? I've never seen one in real life. It probably makes that noise though. It makes it more fun that way. But like I just think of that, like if you see it and you see there's bait on it and you step in it and you should know better because you should see this stuff coming and you hate yourself for it, but you go and step in it. The person that I want to find me stuck in a bear trap that I stepped in myself, I hope is loving and peaceful and patient and kind and good and gentle. I hope it's not somebody who's not these things. But if we step back for just a second, we're given two people in the same family, right? One person who is falling into a trap of sin and one who is currently not falling into that same trap, right? So you have these two people that are intersecting. This guy not struggling with that sees this guy falling headfirst into it, right? Stuck right in the middle of it. What's your natural inclination when you've been in either of these situations? When you're the one that catches someone else in something, what's your natural inclination? I can give you the list I came up with for myself. When I catch somebody doing something I know they shouldn't do, especially if I don't struggle with it myself, at least at that moment, I'm quick to throw shame. I'm quick to increase their guilt. I'm quick to condemn. I'm really quick to gossip, right? Because there's nothing better than feeling superior as when you feel superior with other people, right? Because then it's not only do I feel like I'm better than you because you're struggling with that and I'm not, then I get to go and tell all my friends that person's struggling with that and I caught him and I don't struggle with it. And I feel so good about me then, right? I'll distance myself. Anybody ever done that? That's a big natural inclination, right? You see somebody struggling and you're like, oh, gotta get them out of my life. Gotta get some arm's length here. Sometimes I remove them where they're totally gone. What about when you're the person who's caught? How do you normally handle it when somebody catches you in something you have no business being in? Again, I can give you my list. I can be quick to just lie, right? Just say something totally different's happening. Blame others. Make it the person who caught you, it's their fault or it's somebody else's fault. Redirect and just bring up something else that happened that you're mad at the person confronting you, right? Most of the time, my biggest struggle would just be to run away. Where I'd say if somebody catches me in something, I could just never see them again. I don't want to see them. I don't want to be around them. I'm going to find ways to avoid them entirely. Isolate myself from everybody because I can't let anyone else catch me. But when in the history of the world has any of those things ever helped anyone? When has throwing condemnation and shame at somebody caught ever helped them out of their trap? Never. When has lying or blaming others or running away ever helped someone get out of the trap they're in? Never. So Paul gives something unnatural, right? We see this intersection of somebody not struggling with something and somebody caught in something, and we say, oh, I know how that goes. I've been in those situations. And Paul gives us a completely different answer. He says, you who are spiritual, restore the person who's caught. So that word restore means to restore. It can mean to mend. It can mean training somebody, uniting with somebody, equipping somebody, or preparing somebody. In fact, it's translated into all of those English words in the New Testament. It has so many big, beautiful meanings. And the picture is it's taking something that is broken and helping to fix it. Taking someone unprepared and equipping them. Finding someone alone and joining them. Now again, those are easy statements when you're talking about two peers that are in the same stage of life doing the same things, but this is not talking about that. This is you as the superior self-righteous person finding some lowly person in a trap of their own making. And that your heart becomes befriending, uniting, and helping and mending. So literally what it is that most of us, our natural inclination is seeing somebody in a bear trap, and we just look at them and say, oh my gosh, did you not see the signs that there's a trap over here? Did you not know nobody leaves apples just sitting in the middle of the woods and you just, grab it, right? This never works. And instead of that, what we're called to do in restoration is go and help them open the trap. And then you know what happens with bear traps? Who thinks that you just come out of a bear trap and walk away and everything's fine? It inflicts wounds. So not only do you help them open the trap, then you help walk them away and help them mend their wounds. Anybody who's been caught inside of something you weren't supposed to be in knows this. You are wounded by what you've been living in. And what you need more than anything is somebody who can help you open the trap and then who will help you mend the wounds that trap caused. It says, if anyone's caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual, restore that person in gentleness. This is about the attitude. Your attitude and behavior. So you're saying, in my attitude and in my behavior, I'm going to be gentle with this person, in contrast to being harsh or condemning. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but there's a big difference when you're confronted by somebody who's doing it restoratively and gently than somebody who comes along with harshness and condemnation. Can you harshly remove somebody from a bear trap? I'm sure you can. What's going to happen? More wounds. Right? So what we're given is this picture of saying this person is trapped and hurting, and just because they walked into it themselves doesn't mean you go in there and rip their leg out, causing more bleeding along the way, and say, now I walk back and don't step in another trap. Your role is to put your arm underneath them, pry open the trap, and then walk with them over, helping them along the way to a place where they can find healing, and then teach them not to step back into it again in a loving way. Gentleness is displayed when one family member sees another in an awful struggle, and instead of throwing rocks, reaches out his hand. What makes me sad is that in churches today, we're some of the worst about shooting our wounded, right? The ones who are hurting, the ones who are struggling, the ones who haven't quite got it figured out or who are stepping in traps. We love throwing rocks. We're really good at it. And I'm saying we on purpose. I'm really good at throwing rocks. I'm really bad at seeing somebody in a wounded, trapped place and seeing that it's my responsibility to go and love them, to help them open the trap, to help them walk into being mended and healed. He keeps going in verse 1, and Paul writes, keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. That word keep watch means to watch out for, implying a response to the danger. Be concerned about something, keep thinking about something. What he's telling us is don't be an arrogant fool who thinks that any sin is beyond our ability to fall into. You see, the thing is we in our arrogant self-righteousness, a lot of times we'll see somebody and maybe we'll think of ourselves as maybe we're not the one throwing rocks, but we think, oh, of course I can help them. I'm never going to deal with that. Be careful. Because the bait in any trap can be enticing at some point. And so we have to be careful because when we're helping others, there can always be a temptation to see the trap sitting right next to them and think, oh, I've been wanting peanut butter, right? And get trapped in the same thing. And so he's saying, hey, yes, help, but help being careful. This is one of the problems with this model. It's one of the reasons I don't like it. I don't like that it's in here. This has been beating me up for days now, and so I just get to beat you guys up with it. It's messy. It's so much easier if it's, hey, if you see somebody caught in a trap, leave them alone. Walk away, see if they figure it out. Tell your friends so that they avoid the area too. But that's not the answer. It's go and be careful and help. It's why so few choose to shepherd God's flock, which is what he calls his church a lot. Because shepherds smell like sheep. Restoration finds its greatest function in community, not in isolation, and not with just one other person. So I want to give a quick little side note here. If you're a married person and you're trapped in something, your first person to confess to is your spouse. Because you've made a covenant with that person to be honest. but it can't stop there. You've got to continue to bring others into your life. And when I say others, I mean others of the same sex, to walk with you through that trap, to walk with you through healing, to walk with you through learning how not to step in the same traps again. Because in isolation, it's very hard to get ourselves out of a trap, right? If you're in a place full of bear traps everywhere and you've already stepped in one and you're already wounded, guess what you're likely to do again? As you're hungry and hurting and in pain and alone and feeling sorry for yourself, and then all of a sudden there's the same bait that you see a few steps later, you're probably going to take it again because it made you feel good for a little bit. When you have others walking with you, they can see the bait for what it is. It's not worth it. Paul continues in verse 2. In the first part, he says, bear one another's burdens. So that word means to carry a relatively heavy or burdensome object. So this isn't easy. When he's saying bearing somebody's burdens, this is not doing some light work. And in fact, if you've ever walked with somebody through getting untrapped, it's not easy. But that word is used in other places. And one of my favorites that I think applies to this is John 19 with the end of verse 16 through 18. So they took Jesus and he went out bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, and with him two others, one on either side, and Jesus between them. Just as Jesus would bear the cross for you, we are to bear burdens for each other. You see, Jesus had to carry on his back his own cross to the place where he was murdered for us. So he has every right to tell us, I bore something you could never carry. Help each other carry these other burdens. Burdens is a hardship which is regarded as particularly burdensome and exhausting. For the record, let's just talk about this. So to move analogies a little bit and go from a trap to carrying something around, because what happens is we'll fall into a trap and then we have to carry that around with us, right? That trap is connected to a weight to try to keep you in place. There's only so many weights you can carry around for so long. It's exhausting carrying around the burden of secrets, the burden of shame, the burden of feeling worthless, the burden of self-hatred because of the trap that you've been in. I got a question here. This was a fun exercise for me. Who in here made a conscious decision to struggle in life? Anybody in here like, yes, I picked struggle? Who in here when you were 10 and your teachers were asking you, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up, said, I want to be an addict? Anybody? I want to be the guy that lies all the time. I want to be somebody that struggles with who I am and my own identity. I want to be somebody who hates the way I look. Anybody pick any of those things? Me either. We're born into a broken world, and struggle comes with it. So it's amazing how arrogant and self-righteous we can be when somebody else struggles. Right? It's amazing that we have the audacity to look at someone in struggle and look down on them when we didn't choose our struggles either. One of God's gifts to those who would surrender to him is a family who will help you carry the hardships that come with living here. I want to look again at the beautiful contrast between what we do naturally and what we can do supernaturally in the Spirit. Naturally, I see people struggle and I throw rocks. Supernaturally, I see people struggle and I reach out my hand to help. Naturally, I see someone carrying a heavy load and I hope to God that we don't make eye contact. supernaturally I go and take some of the bags out of their hands, even when they would never ask me to. I mean, this plays out, one of the biggest pictures ever is just think about last time you were in Target and you saw someone you didn't want to talk to. You mathematically created an equation that gave you access to everything you needed and an exit without ever intersecting again, didn't you? You're like, if I do this, I had groceries, then electronics, then back to here, I can do it. And then you're like sprinting, then if you peering around corners, right? We'll go out of our way to not even talk to someone. When maybe that's the person you need to talk to because they're carrying something they can't carry on their own. He says, bear each other's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. It's funny because when we read about the law, a lot of times what we'll all think of, if you've read some of the Bible, you're like, oh, this is Old Testament stuff. The law is Moses. The law is old stuff. We don't have any laws now. But we do. In the law of Christ, Paul actually writes about it already in Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 through 15. For you are called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out that you are not consumed by one another. What's sad to me is that in experience in churches, I've often experienced far more biting and devouring than people restoring and helping, especially when I've been in struggle, where I've been terrified and completely convinced I could never confess because if I confessed, I would not be wanted. But here's the thing. You will look no more like Jesus than when you show love for someone that hasn't earned it. When you carry burdens you're not responsible for. When you help someone who has never helped you. And the reason that looks so much like Jesus is because that's what Jesus did for each person in here. He loved enough to leave perfection and come to a world that's broken and difficult and messy. He took on a burden of sin, though he had never done any wrong, and was murdered for it. And he did all of that to help a people who didn't want him. So if we want to look like Jesus, then we see hurting, trapped, struggling people, and our heart should be to help, not to throw rocks. I want to invite public worship back up on the stage as we wrap this up. So the first people I want to talk to is maybe some of you in here have never heard anything like this before. Maybe you were convinced that not only did all the people in the church would hate you, but that God did too. You walked in here thinking, church people wouldn't like me, especially if they ever saw what was behind the curtain that I put up. Maybe you've even attended church for a long time with the great facade, really good smile, really good handshake, none of that limp, weird stuff. Good smile, and you look like everything is put together. But behind that facade is a broken, trapped, hurting person who thinks no one could ever love me. I want you to know this. No curtain blinds God to the truth of your life. He can see through everything. He sees you. And there is one burden that nobody else can carry you. We see it in verse 5 of Galatians 6. And what it says is it's really called the cargo of our life. And what that means is that all of us are gonna die at some point. And after that, we're gonna face God and give an account for every choice we've made. We're going to be bringing a cargo of choices in. And I need to tell you guys, my cargo of choices have a lot of bad ones. A lot. And if I'm the one that's going to have to say I can deal with it, I'm up the creek. And that's why Jesus came. Because he said he can take that cargo and cover all of my wrong with all of his good. And God, even in seeing you clearly, he is reaching out his hand, offering forgiveness, offering love, offering family. So if you're in this room today and you haven't done this, I just want to beg you to walk to the back and talk to a member of our prayer team. Even if the only reason you're going back there is to say, I'm wrong. To say, there's no way God forgives this. There's no way God loves me. There's no way people can accept this. Go and talk about it. Because I'm promising you, there is nothing he can't forgive because he's already done the work for it. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening on a podcast. I just want to ask you right now to just hit pause. Pause and stop and surrender control and ownership of your life to Jesus. And then if you do that, just email katie@publicchurch.com and let us connect with you to talk with you through what happens next. But I'm certain there's also a lot of people in here who follow Jesus, but you're one of these two people. Maybe you're in a trap right now. As I've been talking, you'd be like, yes, the bear trap, the hate, the shame, the self-hatred, all that, like I'm there. The secrets, the lies, the blaming others, like I'm doing it. First, the only answer I can give you is confess. James told us healing comes from confession. It's to God, but then again, if you're married, your first person is your spouse, and then others. Get in community with people who can love you and walk with you through the pain of getting out of a trap and healing. But there's others in here who have a different kind of repentance. And that's if you've recognized yourself as the person who's thrown rocks, who's seen people trapped inside of struggles, and instead of going to help, you've condemned, you've shamed them, you've gossiped about them, and hurt them worse. Maybe there's even people in here that you need to go and ask forgiveness of for doing those very things too. Jesus, I pray that you just move inside of this room today. I pray if there's anybody in here who has not surrendered to you, that you would just let your Spirit show them who you are. Show them your love. Show them the life that you offer, the incredible gift of grace and forgiveness you can give, and that they would surrender to you today. Jesus, I pray for the people who are stuck in traps right now, that you would give them the courage to confess, the courage to open up and ask for help so that they can get out of the trap, so they can be helped out of the place they're in, so that they can find a place of healing and discover ways to live in victory from that trap. Jesus, I pray for the people in here who, like me, have been the self-righteous ones throwing rocks at wounded people. I pray that you convict us to confess and repent of that. And give us the courage to ask forgiveness of those we've done it to. In your name I pray.